The urgent need in Libya now is security. Security, and the other one is justice.
Without the rule of law, nothing else is possible. No political stability, no economic investment. The Hague Institute is a think and a do tank. It is doing policy-relevant research, which think tanks do, but it's also undertaking practical training activities to make a real difference in the lives of people. The Institute will make a contribution to post-conflict areas by policy-relevant research, which will help policymakers in developing post-conflict policies. We will also contribute by training judges, prosecutors and diplomats from post-conflict areas in the critical issues which they're confronting, including the rule of law, transitional justice and governance.
I was present at the creation. The Hague Institute was a necessity in my view, because we have many institutes, many knowledge centers here in the city of The Hague, but let's say a red thread to them in the fabric of all this knowledge and all these institutions here in The Hague was essential in my view.
I served for 5.5 years as Director of Strategic Planning for Kofi Annan when he was Secretary General, and also for Ban Ki-moon. And in the last 5 years, just before coming to the Hague Institute, I was Senior Vice President for the Center for Conflict Management at USIP in Washington. And in that capacity, I oversaw the Institute's work in all the major conflict zones and also oversaw our conflict prevention work.
I'm delighted to be involved with the Hague Institute for Global Justice, and the reason that I wanted to become involved is that I believe both in global and local justice, and trying to figure out how to have an organization that can both do research and also train people.
We had a good start in June with the training of the Libyan judges and prosecutors, which was a hands-on training workshop which focused on transitional justice and the rule of law, helping to enhance the skills of these judges and prosecutors. This is the kind of work which we should be undertaking in the future.
Libya is an excellent example of post-conflict work that the Institute can do, because it brought in a group of people that were about to be judges, who had been judges, who needed kind of training and retraining. And it's a perfect example of understanding what the responsibilities are, and they're really putting them to practical work with real people that are trying to deal with transitions from a dictatorial regime to a democratic one where rule of law is absolutely essential.
The Hague Institute give us a very good chance to learn many things, and I am especially as a judge in the civil court, Court Appeal of Benghazi. I learned many things, especially on criminal law and on the ICC.
The Hague Approach is a set of unique principles to help the international community actually do a better job in sustainable peace building. It focuses on the importance of conflict prevention, strategic communication, a whole of actors approach, the role of the private sector, the importance of developing a rule of law culture, and the responsibility to learn. The Iraq and Afghanistan comparative study, which we conducted here at the Institute, was important in shedding light on some lessons which have to be learned by the international community. It highlighted the importance of strategic communication, that it's a two-way street, and it also underlined the importance of the rule of law, because without the rule of law, nothing else is possible. No political stability, no economic investment.
I was requested by the Hague Institute to carry out a social legal field research in Libya. And that was basically all I knew before we got there. And what we found out is that there's a massive presence of the international community on the one hand, but very few people who actually go and watch on the ground what's happening. What's justice? Who's searching for justice? What are the issues? And this is the topic of our research.
From my personal view, the success of this cooperation is that it has proved that there is a way that we can have something that's tailor-made, something that the advice or training or research that suits Libyan needs. For example, we identified through real research our needs and ways of shortcomings, for example, in the legal system.
We carried out a couple of case studies, and when I say we, I mean my colleague Dr. Suleiman and his colleagues at the University of Benghazi, and Dr. Carlisle and myself from the Leiden University. And what we did is some case studies following the perspective of justice seekers who had a serious problem and then went through the institutions and tried to find a remedy for their legal problem. And on the other hand, we carried out case studies on legal institutions. How does a court work? We went to a court, we observed, we looked into cases, and how does a criminal defense lawyer work? And has he an equal position to the police and the prosecution, for example?
Personally, I think that the international community should start from what we already have. I mean, recognizing that we already have a legal system there. Of course, this legal system suffers of so many shortcomings. It's outdated in many cases. For example, some laws were issued in 1953, and many laws were affected in a sense by Gaddafi's ideology. So we need to reform the legal system, and in this case the international community comes. But that's my hope here, that the international community doesn't come with ready products, ready projects. They should take into account our needs and start from what we have and take into account the views of the Libyan experts.
One of our recommendations to the international community is to develop a long-term perspective. Take your time. Help with capacity building and help to analyze the very complex problems, because this country is trying to recover from 42 years of Gaddafi, and this is not going to be solved in 1 or 2 years, not even in 4 or 10.
The research by Professor Otto and the Libyans is absolutely critical in one important respect. Their research has identified the importance of the responsibility to learn, that international experts who are working on the rule of law have to really understand the norms, the procedures, the principles involved in the rule of law to make an actual difference on the ground.
I think there is no question that post-conflict areas need this kind of help, because one of the aspects of post-conflict is obviously reconciliation and resolution of a variety of issues that are left over from the past. Also, we do know that transition to democracy is complicated and that rule of law is an absolutely essential part for a democratic society. People talk about the importance of elections, but ultimately governance and rule of law are absolutely crucial aspects, and that's where the Institute can play a huge role.
The key question from Libya to the legal international community to help us to build the new Libya, first to help us in economic, in security, in education, in health, everything, and the second to have respect to our state and to have relationship between us and the international community in equal way.
Most unique in the approach of the Institute is the presence here of all the EU institutions, UN institutions, court, tribunals, the ICC, and linking the expertise and the toolbox, so to say, of these institutions to the needs of the world.
The Hague is the center of international justice, and the capabilities of mobilizing the various judicial potential from that city, as well as the great expertise, I think creates this Hague approach of probing theoretical issues being at the cutting edge, and also being able to train people. So it's kind of got both things going in a great city that represents global justice.
The Hague is the perfect location for this institute because we're playing a home match here.
I'm quite optimistic. I am sure that I will witness a rule of law in Libya. Just a week before the revolution, I received an email from an Egyptian friend saying that hopefully in Libya will be next. My answer was, just a few days before the 17th of February revolution, I replied, no, Libyans are not like the Egyptians or the Tunisians, but I was wrong. Fortunately, I was wrong. So we witnessed, after 42 years of Gaddafi's dictatorship, we witnessed the end of that regime. So in this case, if you ask me 2 years now, after the revolution, and there is no rule of law, I say yes, it's normal. For us, it takes too long, but I'm quite optimistic. We will see the rule of law in Libya.
The key lesson which I learned in The Hague, in this institute, last 3 days, was Den Haag, a city of peace. And this is very important for me. And really, I feel the justice and the peace in Holland. And I hope it for my country, for New Libya.